Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Clueless Capitalist, where we discover interesting startups, interview founders, and help you become less clueless with angel investing. My name is Razi.
And I'm Osman, and welcome to the Clueless Capitalists.
In this episode, we're going to be looking at TigerCampus. TigerCampus is a K-12 learning platform where students can find teachers and tutors from developing and developed markets to help them in their academics or tech subjects. Joining us is the founder of TigerCampus, Joshua Wong. Welcome to the episode, Joshua.
Thank you, Razi, for the invitation today. Pleased to be on this show, The Clueless Capitalist. And everyone. My name is Josh. So I'm the founder of TigerCampus. I've been doing the education industry for more than 3 to 4 years now. And, I met Razi last week, I guess, at a investor conference, and here we are. So I think I'll be running through my slides right now of what TigerCampus is and what is it all about, right? The vision of TigerCampus, what is really driving our startup, and also our supporters and investors as well. So TigerCampus, in just a very simple, short description, TigerCampus mainly exports educators from emerging and developed markets with AI Copilot, and we are poised to create one of the world's largest K-12 learning platforms for emerging and developed markets. So you can sort of imagine that if you're a student, you can go to TigerCampus, you can learn any subjects that you want, and you can also choose a teacher or a tutor from a developing country or a developed country. So let's say if you're a student in Singapore and you don't really have the budget to match, a Singaporean tutor, you can match one in Malaysia at a cheaper cost, but without compromising the quality itself. So this is what TigerCampus is all about. So far, we have raised $220,000 from global start investors. And so the main problem that we're actually solving at TigerCampus is that what we find that educators from emerging markets are actually underrated. They actually did well compared to their native peers, in terms of their A-levels, IGCSE, SAT, and SSAT. But student rates are just vastly different across developing and developed regions. So take, for example, in the United States, you get paid about $60 to $100 plus an hour of tutoring. Whereas, if you get a tutor in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Vietnam, you only get paid about like 15 up to like $30 if you're a good tutor. But for developed countries as well, you get educators that lack work mobility. If you're a teacher in Australia and you want to teach someone in the United States, you can't really teach them because most of the time you're stuck within your market itself unless you go to a global platform. So there's not much like opportunity to really expand, demand beyond borders. So here comes TigerCampus. So we connect educators from emerging markets to the world and also connect educators from developed markets to the world. So whereas if you're a tutor or a teacher in, let's say, Malaysia, in Vietnam, in the Philippines, in India, or Thailand, we are here to actually bring your expertise and services to the world, so that students can actually access, your expertise. Same together with, like, if you're a tutor or a teacher in the United States, in Hong Kong, in New Zealand, or even in Australia, we're also here to connect with you, like students across the world. So that even if you're paying, at a low budget as well, we won't compromise on quality. You can actually learn more subjects that are really hard to get locally. And we also connect with highly rated tutors and instructors locally and abroad. So this is our revenue traction. We do have, customers from Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, in the UAE, especially in Dubai, Hong Kong, and the United States as well. So we do have a monthly average growth of 10% and a gross profit margin average of 35%. And this is our social impact goal. At the end of the day, what TigerCampus is all about is about taking teachers and tutors and turning them, turning tutoring or, freelancing into a full-time job, right? So if you go to like emerging markets or developed countries as well, what we aim to do is increase the GMV by expanding beyond borders. In emerging markets, our goal is to expand 3 times the GMV of the current GMV of the education market itself. In developed countries, we actually aim to increase it by 2 times. So this means that we can also potentially increase the income of the teacher, right, by 3 times in emerging markets and 2 times in developed countries. So the total addressable market is actually pretty big. In 2021, it's $97.3 billion US dollars. In the US itself, it's $19.1 billion US dollars. You have a CAGR of 8% and 7% potentially. So the vision is that we don't stop, just being a learning platform or a tutoring platform. The true vision of TigerCampus is that we gather great educators from all around the world, and we're here to build an impactful businesses by distributing their work and services globally, increasing their income by 5x, so that you don't really have to have a full-time job as a teacher. You can actually teach whenever you want. You can actually tutor whenever you want and whenever you have the time to do it, right? And then it doesn't actually burden you financially, so that you can also keep your passion of teaching and educating, the world and the society itself. So the next part is that it's about TigerCampus customer journey. So all you have to do is to submit a request and you get a free trial. So during the free trial process, we do filter, the subject availability, the price range, and the content availability in our database itself. And then we go on towards sort of recommending you a teacher or tutor for emerging or developed markets. And then later, if you're okay with a free trial, you can opt for, signing up for a weekly lesson, and we will be scheduling payments. And then you have also access to a 24/7 help desk with us. And what is our go-to-market strategy at TigerCampus? We are doing SEO mainly. Our average customer acquisition cost is $30 US. LTV is $3,500 US, and our most valuable customers up to this date paid us $9,000 US with an average monthly payment of $270 US. So you can actually see that our monthly impression growth are growing, except for Q1 2023, but our impression growth in clicks growth actually grew substantially from Q1 2022 to Q1 2023. But what is our roadmap? And we're actually not trying to build like a marketplace here at TigerCampus. We're trying to build a market network. So how does this work? You have the technology side of TigerCampus, and then you have the business side of TigerCampus. And what we see here is that the business side, we aim to build distribution and supply in 5 countries in the first stage, distribution and supply in 15 countries in the second stage, and distribution and supply in 30 countries in the third stage. But the technology part is where people ask us, like, where are we heading with our product, and how do we actually, 100x our business? And what we're actually doing here at stage 1 is that we're building a teacher and tutors discovery platform for parents and students, where students and parents, teachers and tutors are able to commingle, in a very safe space, that teachers and tutors have the incentives to continue communicating with the students, even though if the students are done being a student. So this is the first stage of TigerCampus, which is, a discovery platform that teachers and tutors can hang around, together with parents and students. So the stage 2 of TigerCampus is about monetization and analytics for teachers and tutors. So if you're a teacher and tutor, if you're hanging around in your safe space, in a safe zone, we do want you to monetize so that you can actually make extra income, which goes back to our vision of actually increasing the income of a teacher or a tutor. And the stage 3, once we gather enough of data analytics, we actually aim to become an AI company which has a large language model to actually mimic how a teacher teaches without using a real teacher. And that is actually how we are going to progress, in terms of our technology segment at TigerCampus. So what's the business model really like right now? And TigerCampus business model is taking a take rate of 35% on average of the fees to parents. And for the future, you might have monthly subscription to learning content, services, and products. For a similar business model that we can actually see around the world that is pretty similar to TigerCampus is VIP Kids based in China. Their peak valuation was $3 billion US. There's another one that's based in Austria, which is, I felt that it's kind of underrated here in this region. Their last valuation was $4.5 billion US. It's Europe to the world. And then you have Tutor Vista, which was acquired by Pearson, and then after that acquired by Baiju in 2017. And after that, you have Rad Jobs in Japan, where they actually matched Filipino English teachers to Japanese market, and their market cap was $80 million US. So how do we actually stand out? The tutoring market, the learning platforms out there, it's very crowded, especially not just in Singapore, not just in this region, but you also have a lot of, countries that have a lot of academic centers as well, offline, online players. So we actually segment our competitors into like 4 segments. One is legacy learning centers and schools, which I like to call them, physical spaces for you to learn. And the other part is online traditional marketplaces, online learning platforms. The third segment is AI companies, and the fourth is shadow market, where you have actually freelancers, across the board. So TigerCampus is actually very different, not by product, but by our business model, right? So all these players, whether it be legacy learning centers or online traditional marketplaces, they do lack of international supply and distribution for local competitors. And when you have lack of international supply and distribution from local competitors, you can really expand, across borders. So take for example, if you are a learning institution in Malaysia or in Singapore, if you don't have international supply, you can really reach out to the international audience as well. So you're always having a glass ceiling. So we are different by also having international supply. The other traditional marketplaces like Wise and Prison Review, they don't really have localized distribution and supply from global competitors. So they couldn't just direct sell to the local population, let's say in this region in Southeast Asia as well. But for TigerCampus, we do make sure that our distribution and supply is also localized, so that we are also able to serve people on the ground in this region as well. For AI companies, we do have a human resource mode. As I like to say, that the real value in education is more on real life interactive human delivery. And that we're going to see this trend of the next 10, 20, 30 years, that AI will not replace the teacher, but instead will actually help enhance the teacher's, teaching and of course, workload in the classroom. And of course, we do have consistent output even at a lower price scale. So, if you want to have a good tutor, you can really pay them cheap as well. And one of the solutions is that to actually have, to find someone in a developing country and have them pay at an above average price, so that they can actually, provide their services without the reduction of quality as well. And how much are we raising? The financials, the ask. We're actually raising $1 million US seed round to have 18 months of runway to achieve at least 500,000 monthly revenue with a presence in more than 5 countries with a positive cash flow of $50,000 US. So our last angel round was $220,000 US at a $3 million valuation. But who are we looking for? So we're actually looking for relevant education business operators, content service providers, education institutions, and of course, relevant investor and support network. And the team. So this is our second startup and 4 years as a team. My name is Joshua Wong. I am the founder and CEO of TigerCampus, major in industrial engineering, former federal Malaysian scholar, and I've exited $1 million in revenue K-12 coding school in Tokyo, Japan. My co-founder, CTO Jonathan Lai, Canadian, major in computational neuroscience, former Japanese government scholar, AI researcher in Japan, and a full-stack AI engineer. He is currently building most of our technological infrastructure at TigerCampus. And Joyce, Chief of Staff, major in science biotech, former federal Malaysian scholar as well, 7 years of working experience in education startups, and she is a really passionate teacher. And I think the three of us will be able to propel TigerCampus, to become a company that not just creates an impact regionally, but also globally as well. So that is the end of TigerCampus presentation. And if you have any questions, please let me know, through my LinkedIn or email, or even at the comment section of this video. Thank you.
Well, thank you for running us through your pitch deck. You reached out to me some months ago, and even back then, your revenue numbers were on the rise. And one of the questions, even before we go further into the rest of this, is to find out how did you guys get started. So you mentioned your three co-founders, and you've been together for 4 years. This is your second startup. So I just want to know, like, what's the origin story, and how did you stumble upon doing EdTech and into education specifically?
Right. So just like a quick run through is that after graduating from university, I think about 4 years ago, I started a coding school in Tokyo together with my former co-founder, which he is an American, and we started this K-12 coding school. And the things that I kind of realized during my journey building a close to $1 million revenue in Tokyo during peak COVID as well was that the education industry itself, becoming borderless, as the years ahead coming, like as the time goes by, is that I do see Southeast Asian immigrants becoming teachers of like Japanese students in Tokyo. And once I saw that was a trend of, a teacher from Southeast Asia becoming like a coding teacher to a Japanese student, I kind of think that, hey, if I can actually take this out to the world and actually expand it, having teachers from all around the world, teaching at different price points to students in developed countries, I do think that it creates not just, a very profitable business, but also creates a very high societal impact as well. So that's actually how we got started with TigerCampus, when I saw this phenomena of having an immigrant teacher teaching someone in Tokyo and charging at a very high rate, right? So once I saw this phenomena, I started TigerCampus back home in Malaysia. And all we wanted to do at first was to provide quality tutors at an affordable rate, right? And giving like good customer service. And that's all what we did in our early days. And after that, we sort of branched into like Singapore and Hong Kong just to test things out at in a very competitive space. And what we actually find is that, parents do find it hard to pay up for very expensive, teachers in Hong Kong and Singapore, especially if they're well known, and especially when the parents are like middle-class parents. So, one of the days, we were just like recommending a teacher from Malaysia that has the same qualification as someone in Singapore or even in Hong Kong, and they accepted it, right, without much hesitation. So this shows that the market is actually okay with teachers across borders as long as they have the credentials of, like teaching their child or teaching themselves.
I can see the benefit. I'm particularly interested in the use case and the example that you used with Japan. Historically, my feeling about Japan is that everything needs to be very localized, very Japanese, to kind of point out the obvious, right? So if you're using Southeast Asian tutors in Japan, one is a language barrier, the other is just cultural alignment. How are you addressing that for these types of scenarios? Because you'll have a tutor in one country, what they say, what they do, how they act can be taken the wrong way in other cultures and other regions. How are you addressing that?
So at TigerCampus, primarily, our job is to actually source teachers that are able to go across borders and teach students, in that specific country itself, right? So take, for example, if you're a parent in Japan, and you're sending your kids to international school, your kids can actually, speak in English, right? You'll tend to actually want any teacher that can actually teach well and become an inspiration, for the kid themselves. So our job at TigerCampus is to actually source for these pool of teachers, right? That has not just low skill sets, but also like the higher skill sets to mid skill sets, so that they can actually find, a teacher that is not just based in Japan, but it can be based in Vietnam, that the Vietnamese, teacher can be educated abroad as well, speaks good English, right? And can also teach. And the best thing is they pay at a Japanese yen rate, right? While the teacher are living in actually Vietnam themselves, right? So it's actually more like a win-to-win situation. To answer your question, in a more concise way, is that our job here is exactly what your question is all about. It's about sourcing these teachers from this region itself, right? And actually having them to teach across borders, right? But of course, some of the times we don't have teachers that are able to teach across borders due to their accent, due to their language capabilities. And that is where, we find a chance to also serve the local market as well, right? Like for certain teachers, they have really great credentials. They graduated from the top universities in, let's say, in the Philippines or in Indonesia, but they do have this very thick accent that, people in the States or people in the UK might not be able to pick them up. And this is where, we actually get them to serve the local market, right? To serve the local market fully. So this is how we actually get qualified teachers, by paying them above market rates. And as we expand as a startup, we don't actually dilute the quality of our teacher pool. And that is the most important part of TigerCampus stuff, right? So yeah, I hope I answered your question. And yeah, thank you.
My other question was really around the the demand side, with parents who are looking to find a tutor. I'm just curious as to how you're going about recruiting them. The reason why I asked this question is because if you look at something like, I think it's Biju in, that's how you call it, in India, they had a bit of a scandal where they were kind of pressurizing parents who couldn't afford tutors to subscribe. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but how do you go about recruiting customers, and how do you make sure that you're delivering value for them as well? What's the check and balance around that?
For the past 3 to 4 months, I'm not going to lie, we are actually facing, a similar question at our startup, where how do you actually get more demand in a more J-curve kind of way, right? And we've been asking ourselves this question, whether or not it's, we're actually also finding channel market fit, right? Where, how can we get 1,000 students, 3,000 students, 5,000 students in a single month without really pressuring the market to actually spend more, right? We just want to actually convince parents who actually need the product, and not really, hype sell, things, right? And, at TigerCampus, we always avoid hype selling, because hype selling, I don't think is the right way to grow an EdTech company itself, and it's not sustainable. As you can see, the recent trends of EdTech companies, especially in India, where the salespeople are actually very, very intrusive and very forcefully asking parents to subscribe to their services. So hype selling is a no, and there's always demand, but it's how do you actually, who are you actually serving, right? So for example, TigerCampus is a student-centric model right now, as we're speaking. Student-centric models in EdTech business, you have the problem of churn, which, you'll churn 20-30% because students just stop being students at some point, right? And this is one of the challenges of an EdTech startup. And, if you are backed by VCs, what you tend to do is you have to hype sell, right? But churn is going to be super high. Yeah. So, B2B models in EdTech is also very difficult because of the long sales cycle, and the amount of money that you can actually, get from actually doing businesses with schools and everything is also not that easy, because they do have their own budgets as well, right? So at TigerCampus, we kind of thought of this at a very, very, long time, is that one of the only way to actually build this in a very sustainable way is to build a very, very strong teacher and student community, right? And if you can look in any country itself, including in this region, let's say Malaysia, Singapore, or let's say somewhere in Philippines or Vietnam, you can actually see that the student and teacher community is quite disconnected, right? Name me a forum, right, that is very popular in these countries for students and teachers, right? Because the teachers in that forum, when they answer questions or things like that, they're not incentivized to actually, keep going onto the forum and answer questions for free. And students, like once the form is there, nobody goes there, right? So in order for us to sort of progress as a, like a very, 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 very robust EdTech startup, is that we have to build the teacher and student community like how Facebook did with Harvard students initially, and like people worldwide, right? And that is actually our goal. But here's the little nuance that we're actually going after, is that this community itself will be focused on teachers. Students come and go, teachers stay forever, right? So we'll be happy to launch it in the next couple of months, right? We already better launch it within our community, and we're still figuring out, like what they really need and everything, right? And we really want, like students worldwide, not just in the country, to actually participate, mingling with the teachers in the forum itself in a very safe environment, and also having the teacher to be able to monetize their services, and to also, showcase their profiles and teaching methods, to the world. So yeah, just to go back to your question and answer in a more concise manner, is that, TigerCampus, we will not be hype selling. We think that it's unsustainable, right? Even if you get, like huge funding from investors as well, we are actually very aware of hype selling, because the churn might bite you back as well, right? So what we're trying to do here is a very, very cohesive student and teacher community that we're actually building right now, because one of the strengths of TigerCampus is that we get to retain our teachers more than our students, right? Because we're able to provide them a full-time job and income, at TigerCampus as a freelancer, right? So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. I mean, out of all the things in your curriculum, which one do you think is really taking the most interest from students and from parents?
That's a really good question. I think it really depends on which segment that we want to focus and market to, right? But the way that we actually market is that, because we're heavy on SEO, so we actually tend to put up, like multiple pages and multiple keywords, and then we kind of see the search volume from there, right? Because some competitive keywords are harder to rank on Google. So what we tend to do is that once you find like a white space, then we actually pour, more money in to more like Google Ads or, social media advertising, and also like, let's say, backlinks as well. So that's how we actually choose to market some of our services and products. But that is also not sustainable, to be honest, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're talking about churn in EdTech, it's not about, students not liking a product or services. The biggest enemy of churn in EdTech is students stop being students, right? And once that's done, they're off, right? So that is why it's not easy to scale an EdTech company. So one of the only ways to actually market is having teachers to market their own services. And that is actually TigerCampus 2.0, right? So we are not going to spend, a single dime, right, on marketing specific services that we have teachers like all the rest of the industry itself, right? We want teachers to blow their trumpets, right? Helping the community, right? Getting known in the community and monetizing through, TigerCampus, right? And that is actually how we want, right? So not really deflecting your question. We actually, as a startup, we also did, what other startups did, right? But, we think that it's really not sustainable to do it, at that stage of where which subject is good and which subject is not. It's more or less, how do we actually help these teachers to build a very convincing online profile so that they can actually sell it to their own community instead. And we help them to build their own business, right? And that is actually what TigerCampus is all about, right? It's about, getting these great educators, building impactful business, right? And increasing their income.
Joshua, I was just looking at, in Singapore, like I used to be a tutor myself, like when I was in university. And over the years, I've seen people try and build platforms which match students and tutors, but they've always focused only on, say, the Singapore market. So it's still relatively expensive tuition services. And for myself, I actually use these two platforms, P-Reply and italki. So italki allows me to get a Mandarin teacher for $15 to $25 an hour. Whereas if I were to get a Mandarin language teacher in Singapore in person, it would be about $80 to $100 an hour. It's exactly what you said. And now I can get quality tutors sitting in China or Taiwan, and they can teach me for a fraction of the cost. So I understand the model and I like the model. But when I look at this, would be pretty technical. So when I look at PReply, it's preply.com. When I look at italki, it's italki.com. When I look at TigerCampus, you have tigercampus.com.my, you have tigercampus.com.sg. So is this not siloing TigerCampus to just that specific market? How do you make it global as what you had described earlier? I feel like by having those country-specific domains, it seems that you are just boxing it into that country.
I think that's a really good question. Why do TigerCampus have specific, countries domain, right? And you can see for each domain itself, we do have specific numbers to actually service our customers, right? We want to actually do or market in a single country is that we want to be as close to the consumer, right? We don't want to be this satellite US company and serving someone in Singapore, right? We want to be somewhat, if we are serving Singapore parents, we want to be somewhat Singapore-centric. If you're serving someone in Malaysia, we want someone to be very Malaysian-centric as well, right? And we're building this centralized kind of like community, right, where it's internationally connected, but locally informed platform, right? So even as we portray as a company in Singapore, we're still able to get you teachers as far as in the Middle East, right? As far as in North America, and as far as in Europe as well, right? And if you see there's no Singapore platform that is able to do this, it's because that if you can source teachers from those kind of places and you just try to sell it to someone in Singapore, your demand is not there. But if you kind of do it in a regional kind of like method, you can actually sustain teachers from overseas and have them as your teacher for the long term, while you get to serve these markets at the same time itself, right? So this is where, we go back to our slides where we say that, all these, from pre-apply to all these international platforms, they don't really have localized distribution and supply as well, right? And especially these days, when parents, they do require teachers, not just from Singapore, but also overseas as well. And we want to fill up that demand as well, right? So that's one. But second of all, it kind of seems that, TigerCampus, okay, so you're sort of like pre-apply, international database, and then you have all this, you're selling it locally, right? But how can you actually compete with, these platforms, right? This pre-apply and all this, other platforms out there, right? There is tons of it, even in Singapore as well, right? So our answer is actually pretty simple. At TigerCampus, we don't just focus on the consumer side, but we really focus on the teacher side, right? We dive deep down on why they want to tutor, right? Why they want to find side incomes, why they want to sort of like, go online and teach like other students, and how can they actually make it as a very sustainable way, of income, so that they can actually, do their passion and also make a good living. So this is where TigerCampus is very different. Once you're a teacher, we do really try to take care, of your needs and your financial needs as well, your students and your schedule and everything, right? And, like once you're with us, we want you to stick with us as long as possible. And let me tell you this, right? Teachers are just like wine. Oftentimes, the longer that they teach, the better that they get, and the more demand that they actually is, right? And I'm not sure about pre-applies and all these other platforms out there, right? But what I know is that this intermediation happens a lot, right? Like you can actually talk to your teachers aside, and then, like you can actually create like a side deal with the teachers, right? But at TigerCampus itself, we try to create an environment where the longer you stay with us, the value that we're providing also substantially, increase as you serve your students, right? And this is the direction that we're going, right? Specifically on a technical scale, it will take a longer time to actually explain how you're going to do this, right? But this is how we're going to be different in the long term, right? You will have superstar and celebrity teachers in TigerCampus. That's what I actually kind of imagine, right? And then you will also have like the underdogs in TigerCampus as well, right? And it will be a very robust, not just a robust teacher community, but a robust student community as well, which I think most of this global platform lacks, which is the community itself. But yes, that's my answer to your question.
So does that mean that when you run, so you have .com.my, .com.sg, does that mean for the revenue that's coming in from the UAE, from Dubai, like you mentioned, that's coming from a .ae website?
Yep, .ae website. Yes.
How many locations are you guys in then?
For the country-specific domains, I would say 5 to 6 domains only, right? And now we are experimenting on Google Ads on specific domains, and we target. So this is very interesting. We target low search volume keywords, right? Due to the fact that because we're targeting at multiple countries at once, if we group them up together, we actually get like, the demand that we actually need, right? So take, for example, when we actually market for IB tutoring, right? We don't just market in Singapore. Once we blast out in each specific country domain, right? With each specific landing pages in itself, right? So that the conversion rate is higher and then the market share is higher. And then we also have a centralized tutor database. So that's actually how we market at this stage. Yeah.
I mean, I was very fascinated by the example that you shared with Rare Jobs. I was just on their website. So Rare Jobs, they have done 60 million lessons, and they focus on there's 17,000 Filipinos teaching Japanese people how to speak good English, and they've done 60 million lessons. That's impressive, and it's listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, which is even more impressive. So it's like such a niche platform, but it's done phenomenally well. So clearly there is, if you execute well, clearly there's a lot of room for something like this to grow.
Fun fact, I actually pitched to the CEO of Red Jobs Japan I think 2 months ago. I went to the Tokyo's office. Yeah. I mean, like, we're still in touch. Hopefully they're interested in TigerCampus. Hopefully, they want to be an investor in TigerCampus. But it's really nice to have the CEO to grant, an audience to TigerCampus, to actually pitch our idea to them as well. They're also quite intrigued, to have a platform like this and quite similar cross-border, but not on language learning, but more on academics. Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you the metrics that matter.
Yeah, that was exactly where I was going to go. I mean, Joshua, what are the metrics that really matter to you in this particular business? Is it number of teachers subscribed? Is it the number of students subscribed? Is it the lifetime value? What are you measuring and how are you tracking against them?
So to answer your question, I think the obvious answer to a lot of people might be revenue, but I don't think it's revenue for us, right? It's actually the teachers' retention for TigerCampus, right? And that ties together with revenue. With less revenue, we cannot retain most of our teachers. With more revenue, we can retain our teachers. And since we're moving towards from a closed platform to an open platform, we really want our teachers to stay as long as possible with us, like maybe until retirement, right? So that is where we actually focus, right? And that's where it's very, very different from any other platforms that you see out there. Because as I mentioned, weirdly enough, education centers, universities, teachers, they're like, why? The longer they operate, the more higher value they get, right? You see a lot of academic centers, they'll be doing, established 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? Universities will be like 100 years ago, right? So it's pretty much the same thing. And what we feel is that we cannot compete with 100 years, but what we can do is we can compete with very, very experienced teachers on our platform. So teacher retention is very important, right? Do we have the numbers? Typically a teacher, so it really depends on the teacher's commitment. Are they in full-time? Are they in part-time, right? But I can say that if you're a full-time teacher at TigerCampus, you typically make about 3 times the salary of a normal teacher, let's say in Malaysia itself, right? And you get to stay in Malaysia. So typically you stay, since the day you join, and there's no reason for you to leave unless, you get burned out because you just want to teach more lessons, which is something that we are solving right now. We're trying to solve, right, on how to actually reduce the workload, or you have like personal commitment, saying that, family issues and stuff. But one thing that is actually very, very interesting is that these teachers, because of the perception of teaching as a job, is not that good, and especially like Asian countries, especially in a very competitive family landscape itself. A lot of them they're doing this full time, but they don't really like tell a lot of people that, oh, I'm a teacher full time and things like that, right? But truth of the fact is that they actually make more than their peers, right? And they actually like working because they don't really have to go to school. They don't have the same workload as in like in a school as well, and they get to do it during their time, during their free time, and we also serve them as well. Yeah.
I know a lot of teachers in Singapore complain that there's a lot of admin that they have to do on top of teaching duties, and it seems that the admin part is the most painful. So it seems that when you come onto something like that TigerCampus, you don't need to worry about the admin anymore. So you mentioned the retention rate is important, right? So what is the current retention rate of the teachers?
Right. So just a number, if you are a part-time teacher, right, most likely you'll be with us for at least 2 years, right? If you're a full-time teacher, because since we only started in 2022, right, like in Singapore and Hong Kong, we don't really have much data to back that up. But any teachers that start with us full-time at that point, they're still with us. Yeah. So that's enough to actually say that, as we grow as a company, right, we get to retain our teachers more than any other platform itself, right? And here's also another thing, right, that most of our teachers, they at one point, they're going to start their own tutoring business because they get popular, right? And this is where, like I mentioned, the tutor and teacher community, like we don't want to lose them. Instead, we want to help them to build their tutoring business, right? So this is the direction that we're going. So that is why teacher retention is one of the most, I think it is the most, important metric at TigerCampus.
I mean, one of the things that we, like both me and Raz, we've had problems with scheduling classes, and I mean, it's not immediately related to this, but one of the issues that we've seen is just a teacher not being able to manage their schedule and having to cancel with us quite regularly. Are you bringing tools to the table that would help the teacher manage and schedule their personal life around the tutoring, which if they're part-time, this is something that's important to them? And at the same time, I would imagine it would do is also kind of discourage the teacher from trying to go offline and trying to go direct to the student themselves. Are there tools that you're specifically providing for the teacher?
So to answer your question, I think the focus is on the word disintermediation, right? And of course, like how can we actually provide value as time goes by? So the issue with platforms such as service matching platforms, the initial matching is the biggest value that the platform can provide. But after that, the value fades. There is no, I would say, incentives or, for a teacher to allow those platforms to continue taking a cut from the services. And that is where, disintermediation happens. And just to answer your question briefly, are we going to build tools? Do we have the tools? We do have a full-fledged service that if you're a tutor in TigerCampus, you just have to focus on teaching. You leave the customer service, you leave the scheduling. You have a trip to Europe next month, right? We'll be there to help you to actually, reshuffle your classes and get like replacement teachers as well. Once you're, like when you have like holidays and things like that, right? So to answer your question, do we have the tools? It's more or less the concept of you being a teacher at TigerCampus and you only need to focus on teaching, and that's it, right? Now, do we have tools to further automate it? And we are actually in the process of doing it. So most of the things we're doing is quite manual right now, which we have a customer service team, and that's how we actually serve our customers, 24/7 help desk. Even if you text us at 11 a.m., not 11 a.m., 11 p.m., right, at night, we do respond as well. Because our customer service team is not just located in Asia, we do have a customer service team that's located in South Africa as well, right? And yeah, just to go back to your question again, do we have tools to actually offset those burdens of admin burden, and also like customer service burden? Yes. If you're a tutor or a teacher at TigerCampus, you don't have to do all those things. All you have to do is just focus on teaching, right? And because of that, we do justify our hourly cut each week and each month and the years to come as well, right? But once you're a superstar teacher, the model might change, right? We have not figured out yet, like we are still at a very early stage startup. But the concept here is that as you progress together with TigerCampus, we want to help you build a tutoring business and even a center by yourself, right? And of course, having the students to actually be, giving you access to students and also, helping us to build the student community within TigerCampus, I think that is a win-to-win situation. And this will actually lessen the, I would say, the phenomena of disintermediation between the teacher and the student themselves.
Okay, and just remind me again, how many classes are you currently hosting per week or per month at the moment?
2,000 hours a month.
2,000 hours.
2,000 hours a month. Yes.
Right, that's per month. And how much revenue is that bringing in?
$52,000 a month.
52. So, that's just before your take rate.
So yeah, so my take rate is about 35%. So we're expecting about from 52,000, 18, 19,000 US dollars, like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then with a new round of funding, you're expecting to be able to scale up and get to $500,000 a month. So 10x your revenue is what you're hoping to do.
10x the revenue, and we're looking to actually break, become cash flow positive in the next coming months, right? And one thing that is good about our model, which is also kind of different from others, is that we actually charge parents upfront for any tutoring lessons. So it's not really like a subscription model. We actually estimate the amount of lessons that you take in that month, and we send you an invoice first, right? So which means that as we grow as a business, we're able to have, a very healthy cash flow, right? And we don't really need any outside funding if we're able to grow the business ourselves, actually, right? So this is actually one of the strengths of TigerCampus business model, is that we do collect upfront fees, right? But not excessively, to also kind of gauge the, I would say, the churn rate of the student as well, right? So the danger of actually charging a year, or 6 months, is that you don't know if the customers are, if they really like your product or not, right? Especially if you're a new startup, right? You can tell people that, I have customers signing up for 12 months, right? And you're a new startup. But how do you know your product market fit, right? If you're not operating for 2 to 3 years, right? And I do see a lot of startups doing that. And we're not going to do that. At most, we only charge 1 month upfront, right? And then we'll see whether or not you want to continue with our services or not.
I mean, it's a bit like some of the SaaS models that we've seen where they have a very clear per month charge, and they can bill per month. But if you pay up front, then they'll get a discount on the per month charge. So if they're paying, let's say, $10 per user per month, they can do that with no commitment. But if they make, say, a 6-month upfront commitment, they'll get a discount on that rate, and that encourages people to kind of pay upfront and make a better commitment. It helps on the cash flow for the business as well.
So I think that's another interesting point, whereby we pay our teachers the following month on the 15th, right? The justification for that is flight risk, right? So which means that if you pay the first week of this month, the cash will still be in the company's coffer until the following month of 15. So this is sort of like an Amazon model where, you can get to use that cash flow to reinvest in the business and go to the next stage, right? So this is where, of course, how we actually build out this business and how we get to sustain with minimal funding.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know like how much, if you could remind us again, like how much are you currently raising?
Okay, so for a seed round, we're actually raising $1 million, right?
And how much?
And our last valuation was $3 million US dollars. We are open for, I would say, we're definitely open for a negotiation or like any offers, from any interested parties. Our minimum check size can range from 25,000 US dollars up to, our full goal of $1 million US dollars seed round.
What does the potential exit look like for an investor coming on TigerCampus at this stage?
Okay, for the exit plan, we do get a lot of questions about exit plan, but ours is actually very simple. It's to build a very sustainable business that even for us, we to build a business that we really like, and even for others it will be very, very attractive, right? And from there, then we only figured out, if we really want to sell, if there's like a good price or not, right? But at the end of the day, I don't really want our focus to be, we want to go for IPO, we really want to go for, acquisition, but we just really want to focus on, driving impact with our business. And because we know that the more TigerCampus grow, the bigger the impact is, right? And the bigger the impact, naturally, I believe TigerCampus can be a very good acquisition target, or because of our strong business fundamentals, we might be poised to have a very good IPO. I'm not sure about that, but we hope to achieve that in the years to come. Yes.
Where is TigerCampus incorporated?
TigerCampus is incorporated in Singapore.
And one thing I noticed earlier in your slides when you shared about the revenue, the bulk of the revenue comes from Malaysia. I guess Singapore is the next natural place to grow your revenue, and then UAE, right? Like how are you planning to get to that? What is it? You're trying to get to 500,000 of revenue per month. Am I right?
Yes, 500,000. So the answer is pretty clear. It's that 70% of our revenue in the future will come from developed countries due to their currency strength, right? In terms of volume, Malaysia's volume, exceeds all the countries that we actually represented. But because we started, in Malaysia at, in 2019, end of 2019, that's where like TigerCampus was like a side project only in Malaysia while I was in Tokyo, right? But in 2022, we decided to go across borders, and that is our numbers for now, even for 1.5 years. But in the next coming year, I would say 70% of our revenue would definitely come from developed countries, right? And our supply side will be more on towards the developing country side. Yeah.
How big is the team right now?
We have 12 full-time employees. Actually, 10. Yes, 10. Yeah.
You'll be cash flow positive, you're saying next month, right?
Cash flow positive from November onwards, right? Because our burn rate, like our net burn, is actually $10,000 a month. Okay. And as long as we can grow $10,000 a month, we are actually flip green. Because with $10,000 growth, you have $20,000 cash in the bank. So if we keep that up within we instantly flip green. If we keep that growth up for just 2 to 3 months, we are actually just, a very profitable business. Can live a comfortable life? I don't think it stops. It stops there. It has to be. We do think that it really helps about teachers around the world. Yeah.
And in terms of fundraising, are you speaking to like other early stage VCs? Are you trying to get into any specific programs at all?
Yeah, we actually got an interview with YC China like a month and a half ago, and we were granted a 10 minutes grueling interview. So just a big a backdrop of YC China. They are actually YC, a branch of YC in 2019, but they just stopped being affiliated with each other due to the most likely the political affairs of the United States and China, right? So they rebranded themselves as Miracle Plus. So we got a 10 minutes interview with 6 brightest people, in the VC world and in the startup world. They really looked through us, TigerCampus, right? They, of course, if they did not invest in TigerCampus due to the fact that it was, most likely a closed platform, and we weren't showing like signs of, I would say, focus, right? So focus means that we actually did run a coding club at the bottom, but we were not running it. However, they actually scroll our website and they say that, oh, why are you running coding club at the same time? And it was actually a mistake. So, but one of the concerns is that because we're a closed platform, they wanted to see a more kind of like robust, I would say, business and community that doesn't fluctuate with, I would say, the seasons, right? So take, for example, for the past, since May, right, it was summer, right? And the biggest churn we had was students not being students. So it was a 30 to 40% churn, right? And from 52,000, we're down up to like 35,000, right? But then this month we come back up to like 45 to 46,000 US dollars, right? And we only just got to raise our funds past couple of weeks. So which means that our growth we're start again. We start again to sort of like 70, 80, 90, 100,000. But the main issue here is that we needed to show something that is more, I would say, can drive a large number of traffic, right? So hence we already had this idea of being an open platform, but we didn't really have, I would say, we didn't really want to move into yet until we got that feedback. So once we got the feedback in September 1st, we actually built it, right? We actually better launch it with a couple of students, 30 students, and then we actually launched it to all of our teachers just like a couple of days ago, right? And we're slowly iterating it to sort of like, based on the data that we have and based on teacher reaction, how can we actually build a very robust teacher and student community, right? And from there onwards, we can gather more teachers and more students at the same time and just, do our model without much fluctuation. In order to kill fluctuation, diversification of service and products must happen, right? But how can we like diversify without losing focus? And that was the main question, right? So it was more about acquiring the right teachers, right? And then having them to, having us to help them sell in a very repeatable way, right? So that is why the recording is still on. I can just share this. You guys can, choose to leave this part out. Is that, like we want constant engagement from teachers to students in any country itself, right? With the constant engagement that it drives the website, it drives the traffic, it drives the SEO, right? So we can be dominant in multiple like keywords and everything. And, for students they can just interact in our platform. And then, for any leads that's generated from our, commercial pages, that's where we actually generate the bulk of the income. So take, for example, I get a public speaking teacher, right? I get the public speaking teacher to answer questions, on our site, right? 10 questions, 20 questions about public speaking and share and stuff like that. So we can actually take it. So I was talking to my CTO just now. Initially, when I talked to Razi, it was the OnlyFans, right? It was the OnlyFans for teachers. It's sort of that concept, but with a optimization of making the teacher stay and the students come, right? So which means that it will be more for the student and teacher community. It was more like a Quora kind of section where students and teachers can constantly communicate. And that also uplifts the teacher's profile. They can subscribe to teachers and everything, but it drives huge amount of traffic, right? So take, for example, we have a lot of applicants when you join TigerCampus. We reject 97% of them, but all of them, they want to become teachers and tutors. So from there, we're going to start to ask them to actually post questions and answers and everything so that they can actually display their profile, right? And hopefully from there onwards, we can actually create this a tank of Q&A for scholarships, from studying methods, from everything, right? Lift our brand up as well, and also have more eyeballs on teachers, so that it actually generates, more teachers and more students and more awareness for TigerCampus, not just in Malaysia, not just in Singapore, not just in Hong Kong, but anywhere else around the world, right? Because yesterday we kind of figured out this funny thing, is that what if we can get, have up a job post, right? English teaching job post, or like German teaching job post, and one of the requirements is to post 10 questions or 20 questions on the platform and answer 20 questions, right? And if we can get that to do that like almost on a daily basis, I was saying that, oh wow, that generates a lot of content for TigerCampus. And if that generates a lot of content, that would draw more students in. And then from there onwards, rankings get better. We can actually mix and match like the teachers and service this whole community itself around the world. Yeah, that was something that was very interesting yesterday. I've been trying to do this for a month now. I even went to Singapore. I actually tried to help a tutoring center to actually promote their teachers, right? And I gave my CTO a call. I said that, you know what, all these centers, especially in Bukit Timah. I went to Bukit Timah beside Hwa Chong Institution, right? And I saw like so many shops, like only one shop lot and one tutoring center. Like there are plenty of them, right? And I told myself, if I have this huge community of students, right, at TigerCampus, because our initial, adopters were our teachers, right? Then, like they will join in and promote their teachers as well, right? They will join in and promote teachers as well. So that is where I kind of thought that if that unites the whole academic and education industry and have teachers, trumpeting their services and their answers, I think if that direction we can go and we can break that, I think we can be on to something big. So the current business model itself allows us to actually generate revenue, right? But in the future, how are we going to generate revenue? I would say that possibly the two path is fintech and ads revenue. But ads revenue, like I told my CTO, if we're not generating billions of views a single month, we can forget about ads revenue, right? But I think that the fintech part is something that is very interesting, whereby we allow these teachers to also have like foreign customers that they can actually make easy payments to the teachers themselves, and we also do the customer service for them, right? So yeah, that's the that's the sharing session from the revenues point of view, right? So I kind of told Razi that why I was actually I would say sharing the numbers in April, because from May onwards, when that was a big churn, I kind of told myself that this was the churn where a lot of EdTech companies will fail, right? Because students stop being students, and then you need to acquire, more customers than the previous one, and then you need to add in more, right? So that you actually sustain. So you actually see education businesses, they actually have like preschool up until university, and that will be a titan in the education industry, right? But how can tutoring platform do that when they just start out, right? So yeah, basically, right here I'm sharing right now is that from May, June, July, August, September, there was a dip, and then there was a spike again, but we know that we cannot do our own method. So for the past 1 month, I've been sleeping at 5 to 4 a.m. trying to figure out how this platform can work. We studied OnlyFans. We studied Patreon. Have you guys heard of Patreon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Patreon, right? If you go to Patreon education section, it's not good. None of them are making money. Patreon, maybe for video creators, musicians, and other stuff, maybe they're making like crowdfunding money, but you can see the average earning is like $1,000, $2,000 US. That's not even enough to pay for a full-time job, right? OnlyFans is specifically for porn, but there is also a stress towards educators where they have to keep posting to have subscribers and everything, right? So it's more or less that how do I have teachers to be on the platform without pressuring them to make money, and to have this thing more enjoyable and share, and have this thing create like a what do you call, like accumulated effect of them having a presence in that space, the longer that they are in, right, the more value that they actually get. So that was more of a the magic that we're trying to create at TigerCampus, which is very different, because if you see a lot of tutoring platforms, there's no community. It's just that I match you with a teacher and then it's done, right?
It's very transactional.
Yeah, it's very transactional. It's very transactional.
And what you're trying to do is something a bit more compounding.
Yeah.
Like, right? So they really see it more, the greater the benefit that they have. I have two quick questions. I'd appreciate if you could answer them relatively quick. So the first one is, in the early investors who have come in, is there anyone notable?
So the recent one is notable, which is tied to a deep tech VC fund, is Leaf&Nash Japan, and together with the group CEO, they've invested in total 100,000 Singapore dollars into TigerCampus, right? The second one, I mean, it's more interesting fact that I think the background wise of our investors. So that was a recent one that is more notable. The second one is actually an investor from India, right? Invested about 60,000, but in terms of the exchange rate, 55,000 because of the bad exchange rate, 55,000 US dollars, right? Then the rest was like a family fund in Singapore. I'm not sure if you guys know Zazazu Jinjing. Okay, so she's also one of our investors as well, and we have a couple of education business owners as well as our investors. Our early investors are Japanese. Any any main VCs, we didn't really actually hoping that they would actually invest in TigerCampus at this stage and at this climate, but we did actually have interest with, but it's not guaranteed, but interest from Gobi partners that they actually want to push us to the Malaysian Impact Fund, right? They want to wait another, like the next 5 to 6 months, maybe due to de-risking and stuff like that. But we actually showed them the numbers, and they actually agreed that TigerCampus did actually help teachers to actually make substantial amount of income, especially for like Malaysian teachers. But of course, we haven't do it like in other regions as well. So that is something that we're actually looking forward to actually show them. But yeah, to answer your question briefly, the notable one is actually Leaf&Nash Japan, Singapore, and then the Indian investor. Yeah.
And in terms of your expansion into Singapore, is there any like exciting partnership that you can share?
Which is the Leaf&Nash partnership, which they are actually quite close to Seed Singapore, I'm not mistaken. So we are actually collaborating with them on a regional basis, right? Within their student community as well and their teacher community, right? And of course, their network in Japan as well. Yeah. So that is something actually quite, so in the October 21st or 20th, there will be an event called Science Castle by Leaf&Nash, right? It's a regional research conference for students in this region, mainly from the Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, right? And even Japan as well. Then we are actually one of the main sponsors, right? So this is actually where we get to test, our product and our community, and we're actually rushing to actually try to get these students to be on the platform and ask questions and interact with each other, right? So that the teachers won't get bored as well. Yeah. I think I can share one last thing. So we actually talked to a lot of VCs, and we were granted a lot of meetings as well, right? Of course, the trends have changed. Like you might ask Josh, if TigerCampus is so good, you guys must have like seed funding by now, right? Why aren't you guys getting any seed funding by now? We actually started fundraising on January 2022. So we started late actually as an EdTech startup, right? And we started gaining a little bit of steam in around April or May. And then the funding winter hit, right? So we have like some boutique VCs as well. They were like, Josh, we're out of funds. Like we really cannot invest and stuff like that, right? Some VCs, they're like, okay, I think they're also into their firefighting and stuff like that, which you understand. So that is why, as the founder, we kind of switch gears a little bit. We just say that, hey, let's, if this funding winter is like long, we can actually go for like angel investors and get our seed funding first, right? And then maybe we can go for VCs later. And of course, most of our investors, especially the ones that are exited founder. So there's actually one investor, he had a startup which was acquired in Japan and acquired by Sony, right? And he's the CTO of those startups and he invested in us. He kind of told me that to try to delay VC funding as much as possible, right? Even for Lee Finesse as well, especially for EdTech startup, because the CEO also said that, Josh, for education, like if you hype sell or you sort of like grow too fast, you might break for education, especially like, for example, take it in Baiju and stuff like that. So, for me as a sort of like a problem solver or things like that, that's why I've been cracking my head for a very long time on how can I actually grow TigerCampus to 100x, right? So I do have a like business coaching group or things like that, monthly meeting and stuff like that. Business owners gather, TigerCampus do have sort of like a PMF actually, whereby, how we actually gather students and how do we actually gather teachers and how do we match them, how do we service them and how do we generate revenue. The system is there, but how do we get it to a channel whereby we can 100x this and compound?
That is where, we do find that we do have to move into a more community-based business. And that's where the community actually promotes TigerCampus. That's the last part I want to share.
So thank you, Joshua, for joining us for this episode. Thank you for sharing about TigerCampus. And you've heard from Joshua, he's building TigerCampus to be one of the largest K-12 learning platforms globally. So if you're interested to invest or be part of the TigerCampus journey, be sure to get in touch with Joshua. And if you enjoyed this particular episode, remember to comment, like, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next episode.